program, we're going to be talking about machinery maintenance as far as winter is concerned. We're also going to be talking about your own maintenance during winter, and we're also going to be looking at irrigation. And I know it's the middle of winter, but there's still some people in dire straits. We'll find out who and where in a moment, but just before that we're going to be talking farm accounting. Kerry, IRD stopping writing cheques, so that's a worry.
Yeah, they've made the announcement as from this year they're going to do away with them. They're sick and tired of basically issuing them because they are expensive. So they're going to force every taxpayer to basically hand over a bank account number and you'll have your refund direct credited. Mind you, with all due respect, they already do have your bank account number so that they can make sure they're monitoring any interest that could have happened. Yes, indeed, yeah, and that's one of the fears that people have had for a while, that if they get their bank account they can get money out. The IRD can just go and grab it. The reality is they can do it for a long time. They've been doing it for 15 plus years. They can just give the bank an order and take your money out. So the fact you've got to hand over a bank account, not a big deal. They know it. Yeah, they do. Yeah. So things like GST refunds for farmers? GST refunds, income tax refunds, basically anything that gets a refund will now be going direct credit into your bank account. So instead of waiting 7 to 14 days for a cheque, you should be waiting 2 or 3 days and it'll be in there. It does make sense because, I mean, every invoice I ever get now has got a bank number at the bottom and you just sit there and yeah, and then you turn to religion and hope you've got the numbers right. Exactly. It's taken IRD a while to get there, but they are there. There's one little concern that we still have. They haven't yet made an announcement as what happens if they over-refund or they refund the wrong tax type. Who's responsible for the shortfall and the penalties that might come. So that's one thing that we're still waiting on them just to clarify. Oh, I'm very sure they'll work through that though. Yeah, they'll sort it out. If it's their mistake, they should accept it, but whether that's the case, we're waiting to see. But it's still a positive announcement that I think it's great. I really do, because as much as I love banking IRD checks, it's still going to come up on a bank statement. Yeah, and it's the worst thing for some people. We've got people coming in at the moment and they haven't banked checks for 3 or 4 months. And they have 3 or 4 refund checks for GST and they say, can we get these direct credit instead of a paper cheque? Well, now they won't have an option. It will happen. Well, they've joined the 21st century, exactly. Which is great. Yes. Great. A mobile app for IRD. Yes. We are getting pretty modern here. Yeah, well, they're at the forefront of what they're doing now. They're starting to push the technology, and they've come out and said on the website you've got IR file, so you can go and file your GST electronically. Well, now they've got an app, so you can actually do it on your phone, iPad, or something like that. So rather than having to go and find the computer and do it all, you can sit in your tractor, for example, and file your GST return while you're sitting there. It's like on the land, any screen, anytime, anywhere. Yeah, exactly. An IRD like that is now 24/7. They've also allowed you the ability to pay by your bank, your credit or your debit card via the same app. So you've got no option about not paying. They've given you flexibility there. So you can get in there, pay it, file your GST return. You can also update them with your postal address. So if if you suddenly think, oh, it's not quite right, and we're just going to the accountant instead of you can jump in there and update the details for them. Kira, I guess with all honesty, there's going to be some people who will go weak at the knees about that, but they can still do everything through their chartered accountant. They can still do it through their accountant, or they can still do it on the website. But IRD are moving into that world where they want you to be more active in your GST, etc. I mean, there will be some people of a certain age group who will say, can't handle it, I've just mastered the biro and that's as far as I go. Exactly, there is. So chartered accountants. Yeah, but those people will have to catch up because they are wanting to get away from the paper returns. So eventually, you're going to have to do it online one way or another. Or you pay somebody to do it for you. Yeah, or you pay someone. We've got people though, they'll get us to do the GST and they'll actually go and file it electronically themselves. So there's still that option out there, but one way or another. You've got that try thingy. We've got TriTech there, which thank you. Yeah, allows them to get the GST done, and we can take care of their GST at the same time with IRD. But this app is a good advancement for them. I just want to talk about GST for a minute and your TriTech business, because it's very complicated for farmers. You've got a portion of the house, you've got a portion of your power, you've got a portion of your phone, and if you claim it all, it's wrong, and if you don't claim enough, you're doing yourself in the eye. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anything. You've got those templates. Yeah, we've got things set up that when it comes through, we know if say, for example, house power, we know exactly what percentage should go where, and we make sure you get that claim, because house power on a farm adds up pretty quickly, and you don't want to miss out on it. It saves you some tax at the end of the year. We've done the numbers, and sometimes it's sort of $2,000 to $3,000 worth of tax a year that you could save. When you look at some of the farm expenses that you think, oh, I can't claim them because they're not directly related to the farm, as in the animals, etc. But if they're related to the house, you've got a claim that you should be getting in on. So how does it work? You get the bank statements? We get the bank stuff electronically, we put some systems in place where, you know, the client might spend 5-10 minutes at the beginning of the month putting some numbers on those transactions for us.
As in codes?
Yep, as in codes. And then we give them a written report of their profit and loss and their GST, and then the GST's filed with IRD.
So this sounds like a commercial for DAA, I know, but so basically that's every month you can see how you're doing,
yeah,
and
every
what you're
month,
doing,
yep.
And whether you're falling behind or whether you're ahead.
Yeah, we give them, and if we see trouble, we can actually jump in, rather than waiting the end of the year, which is what most accountants don't like. They want to be in there amongst the farmers, keeping them on track. And
well, so do the farmers, because if you've got, for example, a dairy farmer and the price keeps coming down, I noticed that the price has gone up because they're now including a share dividend.
Yes.
Is that creative accounting or what?
It's very clever. It makes good reporting.
But seriously, I mean, you want to be able to say, "Boof, this is," and they haven't got time to do it, or the expertise to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can take it out of their hands, do it for them, and keep an eye on it, and just watch for those warning signs.
Here's your commercial, because at the end of the program, your DAA, which is Dodd and Associates website's coming up, so people can get in touch, and they don't have to be in Christchurch; they can be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your freebie. Let's talk dairying, as we were, because you're pretty keen on keeping up to date and working on what's happening.
Yeah,
as far as
we're
concerned.
now starting to work with our dairy farmers, look to the next season. We're well into budgeting with them, and the banks are the ones that are surprising us a bit. They're wanting to see the budgets, but they're getting more involved than just the raw numbers. So, for example, I sat down with a dairy farmer and his manager yesterday, and the manager wanted to know what his pasture renewal program was, his fertiliser applications, when he was doing it, how much, and just making sure he's actually viable. Because at the moment, you know, the payout's well below the average cost of production. So the banks are getting worried, and they're wanting to get a bit more information than just the raw numbers that we report.
Yeah, when you get the shareholder of the year admitting at a field day that he or they won't make any money this year. In fact, it'll be something like 18,000 behind, and they're budgeting for $16,000 loss next year. Yep. That's frightening.
It is.
And you know, they would have trimmed their personal expenditure right back.
Yes, yeah. Well, the one we sat down with yesterday, you know, all the capital expenditure's been put on hold, repairs have been cut right back, fertilisers back, all the sort of the things you think obvious of. Drawings are down to basically nothing. They are going
no
to
school fees.
Yeah, no, there's none of that. Sort of, it really is cutting right back, and the banks are wanting to see it. They're going to support them, but they also want to see the dairy farmer taking some action and making sure that they can get through this part, and then when it does come back to the boom.
Has anybody told you, as a chartered accountant, how long it's likely to be? I mean, is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Has anyone put any?
No, there's general commentary. You know, it could be 1 or 2 seasons, but who knows? There's no real certainty. You know, you read different reports, and they've all got different variables as to when it's going to happen.
If you get 7 people talking about an opinion, you'll get 9 opinions.
Yeah, and all the banks have got different opinions as well. So yeah, I've talked to 2 different managers, and they're both forecasting different turnaround times. So it's even hard to actually rely on the banks, and they're normally pretty close to it as well. But yeah, who knows when it's going to come bounce back.
And there's no magic figure that people can say this is what we're going to work out on, because everybody's hoping.
Yes, yeah, and every farm, you know, has got a different cost of production. So when you look at the payout, you say, okay, well, this is what it is, this is what your production is. We need to start cutting back.
And how far can you?
You need to obviously keep the farm productive, so you've got to do the minimum, but a lot of it's just repairs and maintenance has been put on hold, which is going to catch up further down the track. You've got to do it at some point, but they're going to try and survive with what they've got and hang in there. Very
scary times, but thank you very much indeed. Winter, obviously you need to have a wee look at maintenance. We have a look at that in just a moment. Winter coming on, so Scotty, what do we need to do with our ride-ons?
Well, we need to sort of get them ready, I suppose, for starting to think about spring, which will come around before we sort of know it pretty quickly again. So it's just a matter of just getting them serviced and just making sure we're ready to go, basically.
There must be a list that we do before we put them in the shed and forget about them, like engine?
Yep, there is. So just important things, you always want to check your oil before you put it away anyway, just to make sure it's topped up and ready to go when you do pull it out for that one winter mow.
How often do we change the oil?
Every 50 hours roughly. Comes down to some people do it more often, some people actually leave it to more like 100 hours, but we suggest every 50, or at least once a year, just to keep it nice and fresh.
Filters?
Filters we try and do every oil change as well. Some people the same, some people do it every second oil change, but I suggest you do it every, because it was the price of a $25–30 filter. It's a couple of grand's worth of motor sitting on there, so you definitely want to look after it.
And how do the batteries last over the winter?
That's our biggest thing we probably have go wrong in the winter is batteries. What we suggest you do if it does sit in the winter, just sitting there, give it a bit of a charge before you start using it in the spring, or keep it topped up over the winter, even if you go out and start it.
I was going to suggest a trickle charger.
Yeah, just keep them charged up because batteries, they can be quite expensive for a ride-on lawnmower, and there's nothing more frustrating when you go out and go to start it and it won't start, or you're basically mowing your lawn and then you stop it and go to restart and it won't start. So,
okay, let's go underneath. Obviously there's a bit of wear and tear and a whole lot of muck and watery grass that's stuck on there. What do we do with that?
Yeah, so this time of year, your best thing to really try and do is clean out your cutter deck. You don't want that thing sitting in your garage over the winter with wet grass up underneath the cutter deck, because obviously it's steel, so it's going to rust, and even on top as well. So underneath is the hard one. You've really got to try and probably either lift it up a little bit or get underneath it and just actually scrape it out, because the grass will be built up there, especially after this sort of autumn. You do get, it just sticks everywhere basically.
Yeah, it does.
As far as on top goes, you can take your covers off, which are usually quite easy to take off, and just blow it down with a bit of air, or you could wash it. But if you are going to wash it, just make sure the machine's not been used for about an hour, so all the bearings and everything's cold. Otherwise, all the water will just run straight to your hot bearings, and you'll have new bearings for spring as such. So.
Okay, now do we need to worry about sharpening things so that it's all ready for the spring?
Yeah, for spring you definitely want to have it all ready to go. Obviously that's when we have most of the lawn growing, so you want it ready to go. So June, July is usually a good time to do all that maintenance side of it, get it serviced, get it sharpened. So when you hit sort of September, end of August, you're ready to go.
Belts,
yeah, it's a wearing problem on ride-ons. Basically, anything that you can get a stick into or anywhere is going to cause a problem with the belt. So your best thing to do is you can actually visually check your belts, make sure they look all right. A lot of us we do in a service anyway, but there's no harm in you having a bit of a look. And if you see any frays or any bits broken out of it, it means your belt's going to break. And there's nothing worse than being halfway through your lawn and it breaks on a Sunday.
And there's a southerly coming through.
Yeah, and you've got a wedding. So definitely as far as that sort of thing, just visual check over your belts and stuff's a good way to go as well.
How long do they last for? How long would you expect them to last for?
It's a really hard thing to say. It's a matter of some people get years out of them, other people get months out of them. So it depends how hard you are on your machine. If you're a guy that sort of just full revs and just putts along, doesn't take too much off at the time, you'll get ages out of them. But if you're a guy that sort of puts it down low and just absolutely canes it, then you'll burn out a belt pretty quick.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do we worry about things like brakes, and was that engine braking mainly?
No, it's basically you have brakes, but you don't really use them. Most of the machines these days are hydrostatic, which basically as soon as you let your foot off your pedal, it actually stops yourself anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to worry about the brake side of it. Fuel's another one you can sort of think about. Usually you mow a couple of times in the winter anyway, so it won't usually go off. But yeah, if you are having sluggish starting issues, then it could be down to fuel sitting in your tank for too long.
Okay, and once again, fuel filters and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you basically replace them usually in a service, or if you're just finding it hard to start, it's a good time to replace a fuel filter. You can get additives for your fuel tanks, so if you're worried about it going off over the winter or you've had an issue before, you can get stuff like Stable and stuff, which is actually an additive you can put into your tank to keep your fuel fresher. We don't really use it anymore ourselves because the majority of fuel is lasting a lot longer than it used to. But you can get them if you need them.
Do you need to top it right to the top so you don't get condensation and water?
Not
or is that a fallacy?
No, I suppose it's one of those things, if your shed's probably a bit average, you might want to do that. But if you've got a pretty good shed like most of them sit in these days, you don't really need to worry about it.
And if somebody wants to bring one in for a full service and the whole thing, what sort of budget range do they need?
Realistically, it depends how old the machine is, but realistically you're going to have to spend anywhere between $250 to $500 maybe on just a basic sort of service with a set of blades maybe. It can skyrocket from there pretty quickly, but most shops will ring you and tell you if it needs a bit of extra work done on it before they continue it, so you're not sort of laboured with a $1,000 bill and thinking you're going to spend $200.
But $500 spent now is going to save you $5,000 later.
Definitely, like I say, the engine in these things these days are twin cylinder, majority of them are, and they're $2,500 to replace, so you know, a bit of service and work's actually really good for them.
Because spring will be here before you even know it. After the break, we're talking cropping with Dennis.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce?
I can't think of everything.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
I've been reporting on farming matters on the radio and newspapers and on television for 40 or so years, but communication, like farming, has moved on. So we've come up with On the Land, online and through YouTube on any screen, anytime and anywhere. Just push play and see and hear what's happening today in our rural community. You'll learn and be informed about the latest and best information farming matters. On the Land, bringing farming information into the 21st century. So join us on our website, ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
Dennis, bees seem to be attracted to things that have already been hit by pesticides?
Yes, Rob, it's quite a concern really. You know, how we do rely on bees in the world. Food production is very much bee dependent. The scientists in Dublin have found that they've done some testing with bees in terms of nectar, and they've found that they're attracted more to plants containing nectar that have been treated with pesticides. And
it sounds like a suicide run, doesn't it?
It is a little bit of a suicide run, and of course there's a great debate over this colony collapse thing and what's happening in bees getting viruses and bees getting sick and generally ill health within the bees. And of course, if this is a trend of the bees to go towards plants containing nectar, which have been treated with pesticides, they're actually going to get an overdose of pesticide.
It's going to build up over a period of time very quickly.
They're certainly going to have the flu, without a doubt, from that. And so, not too sure how that, you know, it's new knowledge and it's come out, but how you get around that, or whether...
Well, you've been a great advocate of sort of spraying at night when the bees aren't around, but how long is the residual pesticide there for?
Well, depends on the product. Some of them fumigate sort of overnight and gone. They're the very, very safe ones. Some will go systemic and inside the sap system of the plant. That's probably okay too. Perhaps some of the most dangerous ones may be contact type fungicides or insecticides that may sit on the outside of the leaf for quite a while. But the poor old bees, if you look into sort of horticultural crops and the various type of pesticides, fungicides, insecticides, all sorts of growth regulators, all sorts of things that go on there, there's going to be a cocktail of various sorts of products on there. And so it's quite alarming to think that bees are attracted more to those type of plants than ones that haven't been treated.
Well, especially as you guys pay for pollination bees. I mean, if people, the aporists are going to go, nah.
Well, that's right. We don't want to get them in on a kamikaze run, basically, and we need to look after those hives. And
so what's going to happen is that an apiarist is going to say to you what insecticides are you using and when.
Yes, and has every right to, and of course good practice is to keep very good records of all those things and to have read the labels thoroughly and know how and when to use them for safety. But if it's an inherent thing within the bees that they're going to go there, they are going to get some sort of dosage. But in terms of pollination, it also means that those treated crops are probably getting more than their fair share of pollination services from the poor old kamikaze bees. Yes.
Well, on a different note, but just as sad, the grain prices.
Yes, Rob, there's quite a concern amongst grain farmers as to how much grain they should be planting for the coming year, what they're going to get for the grain that's in their silos that's unsold at the moment. And I must say at the moment prices are a little bit in free fall, and that some of the big co-ops are fighting each other over the palm kernel price. And so
that's coming down and down and down.
Down and down and down with intense competition between them, and the co-ops are supposed to be owned by the farmers.
And yeah, they are actually.
It's not.
Suppose they are.
It's not a good look that palm kernel price is coming down and down and down, which is dragging the grain price down as well. All I would say is, New Zealand grown grain is very good quality. There's a food safety and traceability trail there for it. Shop at home, leave that palm kernel in Asia.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who will tell you horrific stories about it.
Yes, there's been all sorts of things found in it and that type of thing. I've heard.
If you need bulk, why don't you use straw?
Well, that's right. And I've heard of vets opening up cows that have been on palm kernel for around about 4 years, 3 to 4 years, and find the inside of the stomach is bleeding because of the rasping effect of, basically it's almost wood shavings.
Yeah, and that's not going to help your digestion at all.
Not at all.
Certification entries?
Yes, Rob, just farmers have planted their crops now, their clovers and grasses and things like that. They've got the basic tags from the labels. They will have made a decision now whether that's crop's going to make it or not, or made the choice of several paddocks. No sense sitting around and waiting for late fees to accumulate. Get on a wet day, winter's day, good job, get those certification entries in and get it out of the way, and then the people in the Bureau can see their workload and plan accordingly, and let's do it quite orderly.
It's like your GST, you don't want to do it, but once you do, you feel good.
Absolutely, it's just tick that job off, another one done.
Exactly.
Yep.
Young grass and clovers, what's happening there?
Yes, Rob, we've had a pretty good growthy autumn. It's been a little bit dry, and farmers have had to supplement the water, natural water, with irrigation, but most crops have established quite well, and soil temperatures have remained quite high. So weeds are also growing prolifically. Get onto them now while they're young, and before you start feeding those grasses and clovers, as you can get away from the residues of your herbicides nice safely. If you get them on now, you'll get a better job on the weeds, and it'll be safe for when you want to put stock on that feed.
Now, you talked briefly about pricing. How's the wheat sowing going? Is it in full swing?
It is in full swing. Farmers get a little bit perplexed when you say we need 600 heads per square metre at harvest time to optimise yield potential. That starts right at the planting rate, the sowing rate, which is influenced by so many different things. It's influenced by the vigour and the germination of the seed, the size of the seed, how many pickles there are per kilograms to set your sowing rate. Then your EFE, which is your expected field emergence. And at this time of the year when the ground's quite warm, your field emergence is a lot higher than if you're trying to drill something in July when soil temperatures are really, really low and your establishment's not the same. So there's a whole host of things to be thought about before you get to the 600 heads per square metre.
Did you talk a wee while ago about sowing less so the light can get in?
Well, that's another thing. Is all about plant nutrition, plant moisture, and light penetration. So precision planting is something that's done to maximise all those things. But within nature, there are huge variations of plants that are capable of tillering out and filling in their own gaps naturally, or some that don't and need the plant numbers per square metre to do that for them. But ultimately, we're harvesting light, we're harvesting solar radiation, that's what we're harvesting. And so in terms of chlorophyll and the green area or the biomass, things like sugarcane and maize are the top performers based on their ability to intercept radiation with their huge green leaf area. And so if you just think back and say, okay, I'm going for the maximum harvesting area that I can, and to get this, I do this.
So it is pretty complex, isn't it, really?
Well, it is. It's simple, but sometimes it is complex to get to that optimum thing. And in nature, with insects and various other pests having a go at it,
You can get your spray down as well.
well, you can.
Exactly.
You can.
Dennis,
Yes.
thank you very much indeed. In just a moment, we'll be talking dairying. The rains have come at a pretty good time for you.
Yeah, no, we've had it quite lucky actually. We needed it, but and it's good that it hasn't got cold with it, so it was just really good timing.
So autumn's been friendly then?
Yep, no, it's been pretty good. We've grown quite a bit of grass this autumn. We've been going some quite high covers and had quite a long round with the cows, but it's worked out really well for us.
What happens in the winter, Peter?
Most of the cows go off farm, so we'll keep about 80 cows on farm just to look after any long grass that might grow over the winter that might get out of control. So, but most cows will be off farm.
But that's all budgeted for.
Oh yes, definitely. Yep, that's take quite a big whack out of our budget, the winter grazing and off farm grazing, so it's a big cost to the farm.
Basically just very low imports.
Yeah, this year we have operated the farm with only 143 kgs of N gone on, and only 300 kgs dry matter of a cow come into the farm.
What would your normal figure be?
Oh, normally, well, it's varied over the years, but we have bought over 500 kgs dry matter of cow in, and used as much as 350 kgs of N in the past, so quite a lot lower this year.
Right, you've got a field day looming.
Yes, our next focus day, 7th of May, so at 10:15.
What's the main focus of the focus day?
Mainly just update of what's happened this season, how we have gone with the low input season, just mostly an update. We hope to have a session on why our mating wasn't quite so good this year, and not perhaps have the answers, but have perhaps some questions why may not have happened so well.
Do you get much input from the people who turn up?
We try. We certainly try to get people to ask questions, difficult questions that just try and get the input of people that come along. Yeah, definitely.
And as far as the focus days, you have quite a few during a year.
We have 4, so four major ones. 3 through on the farm, and then the winter ones generally on budgets and financials for the year.
Peter, when do you do your budgets?
Our budgets, yeah.
That's
No,
a rolling course, I guess.
yeah, no, definitely. It's sort of always on the table. We update it every month, and we've already looked into it for next season. So this year we're looking at around about $4.15 kg of milk solids to produce the milk this year. So at a $4.70 payout, if it stays at that, not a lot in it.
No, which means low inputs become very important.
Yes, definitely. So, and with the low input system, it's very hard for us to take too many things out of the system that we run. So, we use mainly grass, so it's very hard to. We don't import a lot of supplements at a high cost or anything like that. So.
And we'll be sticking with dairying straight after the break, where we talk with federated farmers.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce?
I can't think of everything.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
I guess as far as federated farmers are concerned, the dairy payout is the main conversation for your sector?
Oh, definitely. Yes, it's come as a bit of a shock to some farmers. I think some expected it, but overall the cash flow impact is going to be quite serious, I think, this year.
I mean, seriously, everybody was hoping that it wasn't going to be down where it is, and we still don't really know, do we?
No, we don't. I think we saw some positive upswing earlier in the year, and I think that that gave us some people some hope that the payout might have risen towards the end. Unfortunately, we've seen the opposite effect. Just a bit concerned about how the auctions might go between now and the end of the season, and hopefully this is the last drop we've seen.
Yeah, well, if we had a crystal ball game, we'd be a lot richer than we are now.
That's true.
You talk about cash flow problems. It's serious.
It is. It is. A payout drop at this late in the season is really only spread over a couple of months that remain in the season, the last 4 months. Payout drops earlier in the year can get spread over a longer period. So any drops in payout now really are affecting the late winter payout or the late winter cash flows, and that is usually coinciding with some of the higher cost periods through spring. So the impact from people that have already budgeted through this period really need to get back in and have a look at it again, because it has dropped quite considerably.
Cam, can you just explain how it works? Because we talk about this, the 450 or whatever it is at the end of the year, but you guys get progressive payments during the year. So can you sort of you explain how it all sort of works cash flow wise?
Yeah, so at the start of the year, Fonterra and the other milk companies come out with a forecast schedule for the year.
Yep.
So we get paid an increment of the final payout for the year. So for this the current year, we started off getting paid about $4 per kg milk solid immediately after we produce it.
So that's every month you get
every
a check
month.
for?
That's correct. So the following month we get paid for the previous month's milk. The remainder of that, so the difference between that $4 and say the $4.50 in this season, gets paid during the winter months when we don't get paid, when we're not producing. So it covers a full 12 months of cash flow, and it's just a way of spreading our cash flow out throughout the year, so we don't see the big peaks and troughs with milk production.
So if you, because we've had a drought, dry off early, your other bits kick in as soon as that happens?
That's correct, yes. So we do get some of what they call retrospective payments. So that's payments related to milk that's been produced in the past. It does kick in around about February, and so that has encouraged some people that have been hit by the drought, that they have received some of that money from previous production and has got them through. The downside is that money is starting to run out. So coming into winter, when a lot of that production, that late autumn production, that cash flow would normally have got us through the winter, that money is now no longer there.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's scary stuff.
It's terribly scary.
It is.
Because when it was $8 or whatever it was, I mean, you guys would have sat there and went, winter's fabulous because we're getting a lot more than we did get.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And we had a really good weather season to boot with that season. So whereas this year we're looking at drought conditions that have affected winter crop yields, it's affected grass crops. People have gone to once a day early. So not only are we looking at a lower payout, we're looking at lower overall production for the season. So lower winter crops. So there could be some added cost to the winter that we haven't seen yet.
And now, of course, you're staring down the barrel of less nitrate being able to be used.
That's correct, yeah. So coming into next season, if we are looking at nutrient reductions, or some areas making nutrient reductions soon, then that could also impact on production coming through that spring period. So there seems to be a series of hurdles that are lining up for us, unfortunately. We've had a really good year last year. This is the time to make up for it, and yeah, it'll be a real test.
Federated farmers, you'll be watching very closely people's mental state, and you'll be there for a lot of people.
Yes, I think a big part of my role as the new dairy chair for the area is going to be supporting people through this period and just reminding them about what's important this time of year, that they're looking after not only their stock and their business, but their families and their neighbours as well, that it can be quite a stress on the mind when you're going through some of these cash flow difficulties. So I think, yeah, a big part of my role, as I say, is to get out there and just make sure people are talking and helping each other.
I guess really it's a case of encouraging people to talk to their consultants, talk to you, so that you can say there's a lot of other people wearing the same cloak. and their accountants and bank managers. They're really important.
Yes, no, definitely, yes. I think getting out and talking, having a plan, I've found talking to a number of farmers out there has been a huge weight off their mind. If they can see that there is a way through it, then that just relieves the stress. So it's talking to all your support people, particularly your professionals, the accountants and the bankers. And I think if you can get that peace of mind that the support is there and that the finances are there, then that helps you get through that period.
It takes big courage, though, to go and talk to your accountant or your bank manager and say, look, I'm really in fertiliser here.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes, no, certainly. It does take a lot of confidence and a lot of courage, particularly when things aren't looking good. But from what we've heard from a lot of the real professionals out there, that they are more than willing to support them. The banks and the finance situation at the moment is looking pretty good. So for those that are in a reasonable, stable financial position, that the banks are willing to step up and help them through this period.
I mean, a lot of them will still have a hell of a lot of collateral.
They do, yes, and we are coming off a very good payout year. So for those farmers that have put that money away and paid off a little bit of debt, we'll probably have that facility available to them to draw on again. So it's there again, it's just that long-term planning too. So it's right through to cash flow to the Christmas, and then from then on things will look more positive. So really, it's planning to that Christmas mark is the vital part.
And seriously, it's cutting back on expenses. It's maintenance not being done yet. You can do it further down the track.
That's right, yeah. So anything that can be delayed probably should be, and that includes maintenance fertiliser, some capital fertiliser that could be pushed perhaps to later in the season. Looking at perhaps your staffing arrangements. I mean, we don't really want to be laying people off, certainly, but
you may not renew them.
Yeah,
you may
exactly.
not replace them if they move on.
Yes, that's right. Or perhaps maybe employing your last junior to later in the season, just to help with that cash flow during the tight periods.
There's probably a few guys that have to put an apron on.
There will be, yes. I think you'll see a lot more people, maybe kids and wives and other family down in the shed helping out. But that's all part of farming. It is a family business, and I think ultimately farmers will probably become better farmers for it throughout the other side. But it's just employing some of these tactics in the meantime, because it's that crunch period really, that 3-month crunch period that we've got to worry about.
I think the neat thing, Cam, is that once you make the decision to talk to your banker or your accountant, or both at the same time, you walk out feeling great because you know there's people in your corner.
That's right, yeah. It's support is the big one really for us, and that's what we're encouraging people to do, is to get out there and get the support around them and talk to their neighbours. As we say, everyone's going through this. All the milk companies, all the farmers in New Zealand are all feeling the same pain. So it's getting out there and discussing your problems with your professionals and with your neighbours, because it is a huge weight off the mind when you know you've got that much support behind you.
I mean, and we are very inclined through the national media and through advice on this program that it's all doom and gloom, but we've had it before and we've come out of it.
That's right, yeah. We've seen probably an extension of the roller coaster of payouts this year. We've had an exceptionally high one last year, an exceptionally low one this year. It seems to be that that's the way the industry is moving. So the long-term average payouts are still relatively the same, but what we're seeing is higher highs and lower lows. And I think people just really need to look at long-term planning to say, right, in the years we're making really good money, that we need to be starting to save some of that for the lows out the other side.
So we can really learn from this?
Oh, I think so, yes. I think farming will be much stronger for it. There's, as they say, short-term pain, long-term gain. I think farming will benefit from this long-term. We'll learn a lot of lessons, and that's, I think, is probably the bright point to look forward to.
And we'll leave it on that bright point, Cam. Thank you very much indeed. In just a moment, we'll be talking irrigation. Tony, into May, and things are still looking bad in some spots.
Yeah, I mean in Canterbury and in the lower Wairarapa particularly, there hasn't really been, well, in North Canterbury there's been virtually no rain, despite the fact that we've had some wet days here and we got a good 30 millimetres this time last week. There's been that didn't make it into North Canterbury, and all the way up North Canterbury and into sort of the Kaikoura area. Lower part of the Wairarapa didn't get very much. Hawke's Bay's in not bad shape. They could do with some rain, but they've had enough rain. They have warm temperatures, and so things have started to grow up there. So they're sort of okay, but are going to need a bit of a top-up if this warm weather continues. And the really sad thing is, it is a sad thing, is that we've got great growing conditions right now for this time of the year, and you think about the soil temperatures are still up around 12, 13 degrees. We've got 18, 19, 20, sometimes higher daytime temperatures. So we're getting conditions that would allow us to grow, and all that's stopping us in North Canterbury is a complete lack of moisture. And so we're going to go into the winter, and things are really not in very good shape in those areas.
So how does it look if you dig a post hole? Is the bottom half dust?
Oh, if you're on irrigated properties, you're fine, because you will have been irrigating, and so the rainfall has been an absolute blessing. It's meant that everybody can turn off, and they've been turned off now for 2.5 to 3 weeks. But if you're on dry land, then we've probably wet up about the top 30 or 40 centimetres, and from there on down, it's very dry. And in fact, at our Lysimeter site out at the airport, which is on very, very stony soils, believe me, on very, very stony soils, we've still got a deficit of about 70 millimetres in the top 1.6 metres, which means we've got about a month's rainfall at this time of the year needed to refill that part of the profile before we start getting any drainage into groundwater. So there's ramifications going on through the winter now, heading in towards spring again, and let's face it, we might talk about spring, but it's only a season away basically now, and without any rainfall to give us that recharge, then we could have some problems coming spring.
I guess there'll be a lot of people contacting people such as yourself and saying, hey, listen, I've got to do something about irrigation now.
We've got a few people that are talking about new irrigation systems. I mean, most of them will have decided by now, because the lead time is, to put irrigation systems is 9 to 10 weeks for order of most of the equipment that you need. So, that's 3 months. So, or 2.5 to 3 months. So if it's going to happen for this spring, then it's already in train.
Long-term effects?
Yeah, there's rumour that long-term, how much credence you put on that long-term pattern. But if you look at the patterns, then they're saying that El Nino. It looks like El Nino again next spring.
So that means we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Look, we haven't depleted groundwater, but we've lowered groundwater levels. We're still well above sort of a safety margin, but boy, if you start getting a sequence of high water use in the growing season and then lack of recharge in the winter, then that's when we start to get into trouble with groundwater systems. If you look at storage systems like the Opua Dam, for example, we need some really good easterly rainfalls, big easterly systems to fill that up.
And if we don't?
And if we don't, then it probably won't fill this winter, so we'll be in trouble again next spring.
And we're not very far away from spring.
No, that's right. We're just one season away from spring. We're winter effectively away now from spring, and if El Nino is what happens in the spring, then it will start in that mid-August, come September period, and so we could be well into things again by September again, like we were last year.
And Tony, you've got a bit of a rhyme about snow.
I do have a rhyme about snow, and I can thank our neighbours where we house ourselves for this, and they always said snow in May goes away, snow in June is too soon, and snow in July is a plenty.
Definitely scary times as far as irrigation is concerned. Now, Tony's going to be back again next week because there's some pretty amazing news coming out this weekend, and it's going to affect a lot of people, especially those who are yet to actually get their scheme and all their protocols all organised. So you've got to be watching the website, YouTube and this program very, very closely next week if you're thinking of going into irrigation. It doesn't matter where in the country you're wanting to do it, because whatever happens as far as Canterbury is concerned becomes a template for the rest of the country. After the break, we're going to be talking about your health.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think what?
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking. Think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking. Think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce?
I can't think of everything.
Get you thinking. Think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
I've been reporting on farming matters on the radio and newspapers and on television for 40 or so years, but communication, like farming, has moved on. So we've come up with On the Land, online and through YouTube on any screen, anytime and anywhere. Just push play and see and hear what's happening today in our rural community. You'll learn and be informed about the latest and best information farming matters. On the Land, bringing farming information into the 21st century. So join us on our website, ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
Sam, something that we don't look at very often is humans and stillbirths and fertility. What sort of a record have we got on stillbirths?
Stillbirths are relatively low. We had 57,200 live births in 2014, which is down by about 1,500 from last year. And from that stillbirth, it's around about 2 to 5%, so it's very, very low in New Zealand. Yeah.
The other thing is fertility.
Yes.
Do we have a good fertility rate?
We do have a good fertility rate.
Probably too big for some people.
Yeah, that's right. But we are having less children with, how life is now. It's not conducive to having 5, 6, 14 children as some of my both my grandparents did. So we on average are 1.92 children per fertile female, compared to Australia, which is about 2.1. So we're slightly down on Australian stats.
Are there any stats on the age group of mothers?
I haven't actually looked at that in great detail, but we do know that the highest fertility time to conceive is between the ages of 18 and 35 for women, and between the ages of 16 and 40 for men. And as each couple has a 20 to 25% chance of conceiving per month, and only about 20% of those trying to conceive will do it within 6 months.
Right, so it's interesting about the age group, because there seems to the layman that people are getting or having families later in life now.
Yes, which is actually can be a bit of an issue, especially women looking at having children in their late 30s, early 40s, and of course once we get to plus 35, especially into our 40s, our chances of conception become much, much lower. It can fall down between 5 and 10% to conceive from that 20 to 25%.
A lot of people would want to know if you can bet on that.
Yes. No, well, the research is there, and it's global research that's feeding into that. These are not just New Zealand stats. This is global research, and the reason women are looking at starting a family later is that they're meeting their partner later in life. Women are their career can have an impact on when they decide to have children. Obesity, which is a large problem in New Zealand as well, is also affecting our stats. Diet and lifestyle, but by and large it's usually meeting your partner later in life, or marrying, not having children, divorcing, and then meeting your second partner and choosing to have your family then. So we do have a high rate of women in their 40s looking to conceive, and for many it's successful, but for many it's also unsuccessful because your fertility decreases with age.
So you hear people say she's very old to be having a baby.
Yes.
Why would people say that? It's because the lack of ability to conceive, or because there could be some deformity because they're old?
Yes, well, if you're over 35, you're classed as a geriatric mother. Yeah, you are. Yeah. And my
Well,
husband,
how do you know? I'm 65.
Yeah.
How do you think I
Well, my
feel?
husband and I, John was 54 and I was 40 when we had our son, and so we were classed as a geriatric pregnancy. It was not at all flattering.
I can't wait to see Dr. John and tell him he's a geriatric.
Sometimes we feel geriatric when we have sleep that's nice though. But, but yes, that's another point to raise, is that if you decide to conceive later in life, that your chances of deformities and abnormalities with the child and miscarriage is much, much higher as well. We do know with research in particular that the paternal side, the older he is, the higher the risk of a child with autism, and that research is coming through quite strongly now too.
So that it really is an issue.
You're designed to pass on healthy DNA from both the maternal and paternal side before the age of 35.
So that's your genetics heading?
Yes, yes. So genetics can have an impact on fertility. We're seeing more and more epigenetic type behaviour coming through. So women who are prone to repeated miscarriage might find that they have issues with some genetic enzymes that are fundamental for conceiving and maintaining a pregnancy. And so that means fertility actually means live births. And so we can see it's called methylation, and methylation has there's 20 or so basic biochemical responses that can go on just to maintain methylation within every single cell in the body. And then you've got, you know, not so common conditions that, like Turner's syndrome, which is where the female has a distinct lack of X chromosome, so she's not able to conceive either.
Because people will say that, you know, cancers in the family,
yes.
or heart conditions in
yes.
the family. That's hereditary. That's genetic.
Yes, that's hereditary. That can be genetic. Yes, as well. Yeah, definitely. Celiac disease is something to look at. That's genetic.
That's huge now.
Yeah, and if you think about a female, we'll just labour on the female for now. But if you think about the female who has malabsorption problems because she has celiac disease, she's going to be deficient in nutrients, and if she's deficient in particular nutrients, the body's innate intelligence won't conceive because it will have a detrimental effect on the fetus. So, celiac disease can be an underlying issue as well. And then previously and historically, the pressure has been on the female to be healthy and well for conception.
Yeah, not smoke, not drink.
Yes, and the male tended to, get a bit of a day off on that. But we do know that 30% of infertility can be a male issue, 30% can be a female issue. There's some stats to suggest that some joint and inflammatory issues are there as well. And then we have 10%, which is what we call idiopathic infertility, where we don't know what causes it. But we do know that the methylation and the genetic component can fit into that.
You mentioned lifestyle and weight.
Yes, yep. So obesity decreases your risk of conception, increases your risk of miscarriage, and that goes up exponentially with age as well. And then, so looking at diet and lifestyle is a key thing as preconception care 3 to 4 months before even thinking about conceiving a child.
Because you're a nutritionalist as well. God,
yes.
I got that word out, isn't that good?
Herbal and nutritional medicine, yeah, that's
exactly.
what I do, yes.
So it's very, very important to get that right food going in, like
yes.
lots of omega-3, no doubt, and
yes.
all that sort of thing.
Yes, so getting the omegas in, vitamin D, there's a lot of research around vitamin D in fertility and reducing miscarriage rates. That's fundamental. We're all slip-slopping with our sunscreen to prevent cancers, but there is research there. We've got quite a low rate of vitamin D in New Zealand, so checking your vitamin D levels, which is just a straightforward blood test, looking at your folates, including your folic acids and your folinic acids, vitamin C, which is essential for healthy egg function, healthy sperm function, as is zinc. And if there are some issues, there's lots of things that can be done to be solution focused. You can look at the health of both the potential mother and the father. You can do a sperm analysis looking at how's the health of the potential father's sperm, and then you can do a countless blood tests just to look at what could possibly be happening. And of course you can do genetic profiling now as well, which is what we offer in our clinic, and that can give an awful lot of information, especially if you fall into that 10% category where there's we can't find a reason why we can't have a child.
So there's a lot to it, and the thing is we do all that for our stock, but we don't necessarily do it for our family.
And we do it for our car. We'd look after our car sometimes better than we look after ourselves, You wouldn't run your car without oil in it, so why would you run your body looking at having a baby when you're depleted in nutrients.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's just,
Thank you very much indeed.
thank
I'm
you.
Rob Coate-Williams. You've either been watching or you've just missed On the Land, but I will be back at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.